Action. Hello, I'm Billy, and this is Show and Tell. I consider this a vintage knitting podcast, but people who have been watching for a while know that I sometimes sprinkle in some pixie dust and introduce bits of my Manhattan neighborhood or things about yarn or travel, or it's a potpourri. You never know what you're going to get when you arrive in this domain. Today, I have a couple of things that I'm going to talk about. In one segment, I'll be reconnecting with Dawn, who was one of the knitters in the Jeannie knit along. And at long last, we're modeling our finished objects. I'll also be doing a little segment to help people whose first language is not English. I've said from time to time that you can get subtitles for this podcast in a wide array of languages. So I'll be inserting a clip where I walk you through step by step what you need to do. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see this gear that represents settings. Click on that. It pops up this menu. Choose subtitles. You have to go into that, and subtitles auto-generated, and then here it will have auto-translate. If you select that, you'll get a pop-up menu of every language under the sun. So if I select Italian, it translates what I've said into Italian. I'm also going to walk you through how to subscribe to this channel so that you get notifications. Many people are under the misapprehension that they'll get notifications just because they subscribed and they see a bell. On the left, I've shown you the default bell that you will see, but it's the bell on the right that you want to see, the little black bell with the lines next to it. In the next clip, I'm going to show you how to get that. One place where you can do it is down here. This will be a red box before you're subscribed, and it will say subscribe. And when you click on it, it just shows you this bell. But if you click on that bell, it pops up this little menu. And then you have to select the bell with the little jingle marks, as I call them. Now, when they talk about notifications, this is what they mean. Up here in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, a little number will appear. And if you click on that, it will show you a list of notifications that you have. So also, when I'm premiering a podcast, if you want to participate in the chat on the right-hand side, you must be signed into your account as well. Otherwise, that feature is not available to you. There are also these settings within YouTube. Click on that, and it will drop down a menu. And you'll see the gear that says settings. Click on settings, and it will take you to this page. You have to select notifications over here. If you are accessing my podcast through a device, there's additional settings that you have to set. If you go to settings, that gear, then select apps and notifications and find YouTube. And it's the same sort of thing that I've already showed you. This week, I had my annual checkup with my doctor. I never leave home without my knitting because I never know when I'm going to have to sit someplace and wait. They brought me into the examining room pretty early. So the nurse, they check your blood pressure and whatever. And then you sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait until the doctor strolls in to see you. While I was waiting, I had this little bag. It fit right into my handbag. So I pulled this out and I started knitting on it. The last time I showed this to you, this is the Slit Neckline sweater. The last time I showed this to you, I had been at a focus group where during all my waiting time there, I was able to finish the ribbing. Sitting in the doctor's office and waiting, I think I went from about here to here. So even after he was done examining me, I had to sit and wait again for the nurse to come in and do the blood work. So my wait time was fairly significant, and I was so glad that I had my knitting with me because I really got a lot accomplished. So as long as I'm showing this to you, I may as well give you an update. This is the back, part of the back, and this is the front, which I just yanked off my needle. I don't have anything holding the stitches because it'll be pretty easy to pick these up. But I'm at the place where it's time to do something with the underarm. I think I've knit the 10.5 inches that's required. And I also totally finished the ball of yarn. I just knotted this so that it doesn't completely pull out. But that's how much one ball of yarn gave me. It's Eco Lush by Nurturing Fibers. They're also sort of known as Good Loops. Maybe that's their American name. I'm not sure. It's a South African company. It's a bamboo cotton blend, and the colorway is charcoal, although you can see it has quite a bit of blue in it. 40% bamboo viscose, 60% cotton. I'm on a size 3 needle. So it's knitting up pretty quickly. And then there are these perforations where you just drop stitches. So that also goes really fast. Anyway, I thought I might just give you a little update on that project. If you like the looks of that sweater is the subject of my upcoming knit along. That knit along will begin on May 1st, and it's going to work a little differently than my previous knit alongs. I will put some information in the description box below, and there's a link there where you can go and register for that. Part of that will involve a 15% discount on yarns from Good Loops. And once you register for that, you'll receive the information on how to go about getting your discount. So I wanted to say thank you to Jennifer for putting that all together for us. What's different about that knit along is that I'm really gearing it to people who are less experienced. I'm sure there are people out there who would like very much to knit their first sweater, or people who have never knit from a vintage pattern before who might be a little bit intimidated. I will be holding your hand all the way through. As long as you can knit and purl, I'll be able to show you everything else that you need. It's not that complicated a pattern, although it has some very nice elements to it. It's knit in pieces, so you will learn, if you don't already know how, to do the mattress stitch to assemble the front and the back and the sleeves. And in that particular pattern, there's also a very interesting band around the neck. There's also a buttonhole. So that's why this one will be different. There'll be a lot of hand holding. We will meet on Zoom, as my other knit alongs have done, but those will not be broadcast for the public to see. So what you're learning there will be behind a paywall, and all the information will be in the description box below. As promised, I'm back with my guest, Dawn, who's been a loyal and faithful fan since the beginning of this podcast. I think she has seen every single episode, and she participated in the Jeannie knit along. Here's my most recent conversation with her as we wrapped up, finally, months and months of knitting our Jeannies. Now, we started back in July of 2021, and I could tell you my experience, but you've heard a little bit more from me. I'm going to pass the baton to Dawn and let her kind of walk you through what her experience was over the many months knitting this sweater. Take it away, Dawn. Thanks.
Okay, it's taken me 7 months to make Jeannie, 5.5 months to make her the first time, and a month and a half of alterations. It came out too big, too wide. So the first thing I did was take off the bottom ribbing. I took all this ribbing off. Here. And then after I'd taken the ribbing off, I had to put seams at both sides to make it narrow. So I'll show you those. Okay, so inside you'll see I have some seams where I took it in, and I've reinforced the edges with pink so nothing can come undone. And on the outside there is a seam down the side, but I've matched up all the bands, so you can't really see the seam because all the bands are matching. So it fits me now. Then once I'd done that, I just had to take in the shoulders. They were too wide, so I folded them under. I cut off the excess fabric, this is the sort of thing I had to cut off quite a lot. And it would be this ×4 because it would be 2 at the front and 2 at the back. So it's quite a lot of fabric I had to remove. And then, of course, I had to reinforce all the edges on the insides, the same as on the insides of the seams on the side. And then pick up and knit the ribbing. So it was quite extensive work, but it fits me now. So.
I have a headache just hearing about it. Never mind doing it. What a nightmare. I'm really sorry that was your experience. I have to say, for me, it was 4.5 months, which still was a lot. I salute you for staying the course, because I'm sure many other people, and probably people watching, would have taken this and put it aside, put it in a timeout, and let it go for a year or 2, or maybe more, not being able to face coming back to it. I think that's the hardest part. When you run into some kind of a roadblock, facing it head on and dealing with it, because you're already at the point where you've had it up to here. I mean, after months and months and months of very tedious knitting, for anybody who's here for the first time, 46 stitches to 4 inches. Do the math. I think that's 11.5 stitches per inch. None of this 4 or 5 stitches to the inch stuff. Working with yarn that's this fine, like maybe lace weight, maybe cobweb, something super fine. If you look on Ravelry at yarns, I defy you to find anything there that's listed as giving you 46 stitches to 4 inches, because most of these yarns are knit on a larger needle for lace shawls or what have you. They're not generally going to be knit in a very solid fabric that, it's rather dense. You can't see through it. So yes, my experience was very different. I guess I should also stand up and show the full view. I don't know if it'll fit on my screen, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So I have talked often about having narrow shoulders, and I was very, very conscious the whole time that I was knitting of the shoulder width. I wanted it not to be right at my shoulder. I wanted it to drop down a little because I don't have a really attractive arm, yet in the summertime I do want to sometimes have a bare arm. So I thought that's a little more slenderizing the look. But I also didn't want to have too much fabric in here, which, I have a little more than I would like, but I'm pretty okay with the fit. It was tedious, but it was fun, juggling the 9 colors. And then also for me, I was very specific about how I wanted the shape of this neck to look. I'll try and insert a picture here of Jeannie Jarmson, who was the original person to knit this sweater in the 1930s. I liked her neckline. I liked her neckline better than the neckline on Susan Crawford's model. And I felt like her buttons sort of came in like this, and this was like a trapezoid shape, kind of straight down the side. So I was really paying a lot of attention to some of those finishing details, and it was a very new experience for me. It wasn't easy, and it took a lot of stick-to-itiveness, that's for sure. So anybody attempting this, block out at least, I would say at least 4 months. Courtney, who was with us early on, had completed hers before we started. She did it in much less time. She must be super fascinated, because I knit on this monogamously every day, chipping away at it. And then there's the little hat. I forget what the pattern is called, but it's obviously a vintage hat. And I had a strip of the pattern that I had used when I was swatching. So I sort of reconstituted that and popped it up in there. I had plenty of yarn left over. I ordered cones of each of the 9 colors. I think there are only 50-gram cones, so it wasn't an abundance of yarn, but when it's this thin, I had plenty of yarn. I had plenty of yarn left over too. So I made the pom-poms with all the different color yarns as well. And there it is. I know everyone's been waiting to see the finished output of our efforts. And I think it's a red letter day that we can both be here wearing our Jeannies so proudly. So thanks so much for coming back, Dawn, and being with me once again to show it off.
It's great to have it finally done. There were times when I thought I wouldn't finish, but it's just wonderful to have it finished, especially as the stitches were so tiny and the needles were tiny. It will be nice to get back to something a bit bigger.
Like normal.
Yeah.
It was on a size 1 US, most of it. And recently I started doing something where it's on a size 3 needle, but there's ribbing. So the ribbing I'm doing on a size 1 needle, and size 3 seems so huge compared to the size 1. I just can't believe that I did this. I can't. People who have never knit at such a fine gauge just can't even comprehend. It's sort of like, you know, I live 1.5 miles from ground zero, and people all around the world, of course, were saddened on that day and grieving for us New Yorkers. But if you weren't here, you can't feel what we felt. And I've often said the people who were several miles further away than us had a different experience, and the people who were way uptown or in the other boroughs further out, even a different experience. And then I had friends in California telling me, oh, you know, we're devastated. And if you haven't been here, you don't know. You can't know what this experience was. And I don't think that I would ever want this experience again, but I'm glad I did it. And I bet you feel the same way too, don't you?
Yes, I don't think I'd want to make another one, but I'm glad I've done it. If you look on Ravelry, not many people have made them. I think there's only about 7 completed sweaters that I've seen, but that includes ours. So there's the 3 of us, if you include Nancy, who's not here today.
Right, Nancy finished hers and Courtney finished hers, and then there were a couple other people who started with us who they haven't finished theirs. So
not many people have attempted it, but it is quite daunting. I would say all the different colours. The pattern itself isn't isn't difficult, is it? It's just all the colors, I think.
Well, you must follow that chart. You pretty much have the chart attached at your hip. You can't go out, riding in a car easily, or taking this on a vacation with you. You have to be paying attention pretty much with every stitch. There's a couple of areas where there's a row that's a solid color all the way across. Yeah, the ribbing, not too bad. But even the ribbing, it's a specific color sequence. So, and it's not the same number of rows in each color. So if you want to do it as written, as charted, it's not trivial, shall we say. If you haven't noticed, you're only seeing part of mine, but if you haven't noticed this, each one of these darker bands is a different motif. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my size. Bigger sizes, there's even more of these. The lighter color bands are all the same, but I wasn't able to memorize them because by the time you get through this, you've already forgotten this, because this was, I forget, a week of knitting. I think we figured out to do each of these bands, like that.
Each band took a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So it was, it was heavy going at some point. It was heavy going, wasn't it? And but you had to get through the whole.
It kept my interest the whole time because each one was different. I think if these had been the same, it would have been a little, I don't know, boring maybe for me, but I had something to look forward to, like, oh, when I get to that row, it's going to be like a whole new day, whole new week.
Yeah.
So it really kept me motivated and it kept me going. And as I said, I wasn't knitting on anything else the whole time I did this. So Susan Crawford, if you're out there, thank you very much for providing us with a challenging sweater that took a long time. You saved me a great deal of money because in that period of time, I might have knit several other sweaters, but like this, for the cost of one sweater, I was engaged for many, many months. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm done. I'm happy that I have it. Soon the weather will be warm enough to actually wear it.
You can wear it on its own, like you're wearing it, or with a shirt, like I'm wearing it. So you could wear it in, good weather and bad weather.
Yes,
it's quite versatile.
I'm afraid of stretching it out if I put something under it. So I probably won't do that, but maybe. I mean, we'll see. Okay, I think that's a wrap. We have really squeezed everything we have out of this.
We got there in the end. So that's the main thing.
Well, thanks so much for showing us all the nuances of what you did, because I think it's interesting. Once you've steeked, then it seems like kind of cavalier about, oh, I can just cut fabric off and secure the edge, no problem. It gives you a lot of security now about altering something that doesn't fit. So that's another tool to have in your toolbox.
Exactly. Once I'd done the steeks, it's the first time I've done steeks, I realized that you can alter a sweater, and as long as you reinforce the edges, it won't come undone. It's fine. So the steeks, it was a good tool to have. Would you, in the final, the final countdown, would you recommend other people to try it? The jumper itself?
I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. I would recommend it for somebody who feels that they have the staying power to see it through to completion. So if you're bored with doing things that whip up in, 2 or 3 weeks and you want something that's really going to keep you occupied for a long time, yes, I would recommend it. I think you probably want to have pretty decent vision The stitches are very tiny, and if you drop any, you want to be able to see it. I mean, maybe with magnification, okay. You have to be a little bit fearless, because that steeking, it's not, as I said, it's not for the faint of heart. And I will put a link to the little video I did where I'm actually doing the steeking. I can't say I was nervous. I knew that I wasn't going to let the whole sweater unravel, but I had freight check in hand and I needed it. I used it. So
with my sticks, I reinforced the edges with a row of blanket stitch along the edge, and then a row of back stitch just a 1/4 of an inch in. So it had 2 layers of reinforcement. And then when I cut the sticks, I found that quite easy, because if you've reinforced it well, you don't have to worry about the sticks, you know, about cutting them. But I know you had a little bit of difficulty, you know, with the fray check, etc. I saw your video. But you got there, didn't you? You didn't give up.
And I'm not afraid to wear, like, I'm not afraid of it unraveling or anything. And goodness knows I have plenty of yarn left over, perish that thought, if I ever had to secure anything or reknit it. Oh, I hope I never do. But yeah, it was an experience. That was my first time steeking. So, I mean, that's another thing, like in answer to your question. I don't know that I would recommend this for somebody who would be steeking for the first time. But hey, I did. If I could do it, you could do it too. I would say it's more about the willingness to stay the course. If you're not the kind of person who can, you know, sit down and do something for hours on end, you know, if you're fidgety and you need to take a lot of breaks, this might not be for you, because I think you really have to have staying power. And you, what do you think? I mean, would you recommend it?
I would recommend it for somebody who wants a challenge, I think. I wouldn't recommend it for new knitters.
Oh, no. Ooh.
Yeah, for somebody who wants a bit of a challenge and something that takes a while. Yes, it was an experience, and I learned a lot from all the alterations. I learned a lot from the actual doing the pattern, the Fair Isle pattern. So yes, I think you need to be a little bit more experienced to do this particular Jeannie.
I think so too. This is like Fair Isle on steroids.
Yeah.
I had not done Fair Isle before. I'd done color work. So this had a lot of firsts for me. The shape of the neckline, the way the construction, the way the neckline is assembled, the steeking, the fine needle size, the fine yarn, the 9 colors, charts. You know, I had been familiar with charts, but these charts don't quit. And the way the pattern is written, each size has a different set of charts. So when you're scrolling through digitally, if you happen to go to the wrong size, you'll be very messed up. Also, putting in the steek stitches, you know, that was kind of like a new thing for me. It's important to have the colors right so that you cut in the right place. You know, it's important for that line of demarcation to be clear to you when you take your scissors to it. So, you know, there's a lot of things. And then of course the fit. I'm a different size up here than I am at my hips. So I chose the larger size and then altered it up in here to, you know, bring it in a little to suit me more. And what I did was I took out, like, I think half of that in each of the 4 corners. And that took out a couple of inches for me. So, you know, it seemed to work, but I was measuring all the time, making sure. But then it's a total crapshoot with the neckline, because this is steeked. This is all together like this. And you don't know what that shape is going to be till you slice it open. And then it's sort of like you see what you got. You have a different shape than I do. probably I sewed it differently in here, but some of this is like, you don't know what you have until you cut it open. Sort of like surgeons, I guess.
We all have slightly different shapes around the neck, and the buttons are slightly in a different place, aren't they? But I think that's a lot to do with the different knitter. We all have a certain way of doing things.
Well, I specifically took it in on the inside to get this shape. I probably could have had the shape that you have, but I wanted this, so I kind of folded it like origami inside to make it happen.
Okay.
Because I was going off of her original Jeannie Jarmson, her look. That's the one that's in the museum, I think, in Shetland. So
yes, it's more like trapezoid, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Thanks for staying the course and being with me for all of those different episodes. I'll try and put links. There'll certainly be links in the show notes for all of the different episodes where the gang of us were together comparing many notes, but I didn't want to leave all the viewers hanging. I wanted you to be able to actually see the finished product in all of its glory on Dawn and myself. And I wish the others were here to show theirs too, but c'est la vie.
Yes, I wish they were here. No, never mind. I wish they were all here, but not to worry.
Yeah. Well, okay. Dawn,
Okay,
thank you again. So to totally wrap up the Jeannie project and put it to rest, I have prepared one last little bonbon for your viewing pleasure. Here it goes.